Jim, one of John Steele's sons. Basically, I want to record a message for Patty. Patty, I love you. I miss you, as we all do. I just wanted to say that I'm grateful for all the memories that you've given me and embracing me as family, like we have to you, because you're not blood, but you are a family. We're going to miss you.
I'm here at Patty Braddy's Celebration for Life on Wards Island at the Wards Island Clubhouse with hundreds and hundreds of the whole community here. You can see all around. Everybody. And we're all celebrating Patty. Patty grew up on the island and she lived right beside the park by the baseball diamond. And she's a few years older than me, but I've known Patty my entire life. And she's always been a real bright, sunshine, friendly, smiley person. And we really miss her. I'm so happy that we were able to all be together here.
Best butter tart I ever had, Patty Bradley.
Carol Bigwood at 17 4th Street, and I really appreciated Pat Bradley for many decades. First it was like to go over there and get ice cream for the kids. The kids always knew there would be ice cream at Patty's. And then, you know, for a smoke, I would often have a smoke with Patty. And we always had a good, I don't know, little chit-chat, laugh thing, you know, and yeah, we had a good time. She was an anchor in the community in terms of many necessary supplies.
Hi, I'm Lynn Purvis, and Patty was a real savior in this community because we would go over there to get milk and other precious goods and really appreciated how kind and sweet she was all the time.
When the floor was still like this, right in the front door.
Oh, hi, I'm Bonnie Hamburg. I live at 18 Lakeshore Avenue, and Patty lived across the park from us. My husband Doug and her were in kindergarten together at the island school, but I didn't know Patty for that long. But Patty was always really a nice person to meet on the street and say hello to. She also provided hot meals for the crew that built our house on Wards Island. We had been on Algonquin. We built our house at 18 Lakeshore. So that was really great. They would love that. Dave Brooks and the crew would go over to her place at lunch and they'd have a nice hot roast beef dinner. Like, it was amazing. So I really apprecited Patty for feeding our...
Thank you everybody for coming today to honor our wonderful friend and neighbor, Patty Bradley. So we're going to have a few people speak up here, and I'm going to introduce them. And the first one that's going to speak will be my sister Darylyn, and she's going to come up now.
And connected to the island in a lot of different ways. As I've been here since Tuesday, in and out of Patty's house and looking at memorabilia and trying to put together pictures and whatnot. And during that time, I realized, well, Patty saved everything. I mean, everything. And you know, in the day when we had photos that we had 2 or 3 of the same, and they weren't even any good, she saved them. And there were backs of heads, a lot of pictures. Photos from trips that we don't know where it was, and all that stuff. So we saved as many as we could, and I hope you enjoyed looking at those. The other thing that she saved were all her report cards and all her brother's report cards. And I got a kick out of the one particularly, and for those of us in here, I'm sure everybody knew Patty. This was her grade 5 report card, and if we remember, that tends to be the time you start to goof off and fool around. And here's what hers said. Teacher said, Patsy has to become serious, or the results will be disastrous. It will be a long, uphill grind until June. And I say, and I know we all do say, thank God she didn't listen to that teacher. So I've already, think I said thank you for coming, but if I didn't, thank you for coming today to celebrate Patty's life. For those of you who may not know, and many don't, the Bradleys and the Lies on Wards go back to our grandparents in the early 1900s. Then Pat's dad, Jack, and my mom and dad were friends as little wee children, and onward through their adult life. Ruth Jackson, my mom's best city friend, brought her to an island dance where she met Jack Bradley. Well, they got married. Fast forward, John and Patty are born. John being Patty's brother, who maybe some of you have never met. He was her brother, about a year older. And as couples, our families socialized often in the city and on the island. And something I remember fondly was Friday night scary movies in the summer at 9 5th Street. And I think it was just the girls who were inside watching the movies, and the boys would hang around outside. Particularly, I remember Jimmy Socket putting his face up to the window and scaring us. Then I'd have a sleepover, and we'd sleep on the bunks in her room and have Aunt Ruth's peach jam for breakfast. Patty was a sweet wee girl, and a sweet wee woman for that matter. She had an infectious laugh. We all loved music and dancing on the island. Unquestionably, Patty's happiest days in her life were spending time with her son Brad. She was a devoted mother and fought for him all his short life. Unbeknownst to Patty, the island school had set him up for a special high school that was neither Brad's nor Patty's choice. Like a mother bear, she fought the guidance department, the P's, the VPs, and she won. Brad went on to remain with his island school friends because Patty knew that was right for him, and it was the right choice. Patty was a nurturer, as could be seen when she took care of her dad when his health failed. She was always involved with the WIA. Funny story, in the 1980s, the beer garden on Gala weekend was just across from Patty's house over in the park. And she made the ice all weekend long for the beer bins. Patty has family here. She has her cousin Jody, and she has her, I call them family, the Smith family. Stephanie Smith was Patty's godchild. And they spent, yeah, it is a lovely thing. And they were very close. I'm speaking for Stephanie. She would find it hard to say that. So I wanted everybody to know. And they had many dinners together. And Stephanie was close to Patty. Patty and her dear friend Rosemary Sullivan were well known on the island for sandwich making, desserts, etc. over the years. People running for the boat in the morning were happy to grab a muffin or a coffee. In the 60s, when Patty was a teenager, she would stay with the Sullivan clan so that Frank and Rosemary could have a little time away. And she remembered and told me about those times fondly. Patty, I think I missed the name. Oh yeah, Patty's store. Suffice to say, she was always there to serve. She also made little profit. As was always with Patty, that was the way she would like it to be. She did not like attention paid to her. She was witty, kind, loving, always with a smile, and interested in hearing about family and friends. It broke our hearts when she lost her sweet boy Brad, and now she will be reunited with him. Let's raise our glasses, and toast to a beautiful soul, our friend Patricia Ruth Bradley. I did add one little thing that I didn't say, which was Patty, Rick, and John.
Yes, sir.
Hello, it's Ben Dunn, Daryl and Son. It's so wonderful.
Okay, our next speaker,
And
a lot of you will
the sun is
remember,
shining,
Linda Leach.
and we're all having a
They lived
wonderful
right on
time.
Channel and
And,
4th Street
make
for
God
years
bless.
and years and years.
You want a drink?
I don't drink, honest.
I know.
I first met Patty in 1956 when we were 7 and she was 7, I was 8 years old.
You got to talk right into the mic.
Yeah.
We went to school together, played together after school, played in this park, and played on the beach. We went to supervision together also. We would often sit on her porch and watch the baseball games. By the time Patty and I were, her 11 and me 12, we had a larger group of friends made up of Patty, myself, my sister Gail, Heather Thompson, and Darylyn Lai. Darylyn was a summer friend, and the rest of us waited anxiously every end of June for her to come over for the summer. As we got older, we went to Brownies and then Guides together. When we were 13, her 13 and me 14, I wasn't going to say this, but that's how it was. We added boys to our group of friends. We hung around with Tommy Rice, Mike McKinnon, Dave Smith, the Websters, the Scottwoods, and a few other great guys that came over from the city. We called them city bums. My sister and I actually married our city bums. And my sister is still with her. His mom's passed away, but her and her husband are here today. And their son Kyle he's the captain of the Thomas Rennie, coming to Wards. Long history. Where was I? Yeah, so the guys came over on weekends and we hung around over here at Patty's house. Her parents were so cool. They let us set up speakers and we danced. And one summer we actually met a few guys that were in a band. Where's Dare? Do you remember? Yeah. And the band was all out on the lawn playing their music. It was great fun. We were all dancing. Good memories. Pat and I both got married and we each had our first child. But unfortunately, both our children ended up in Sick Kids Hospital, and that brought Pat and I together again. I was supporting her through Brad's battle with cancer when he was 8 months old, and then Patty would come and keep me company in my daughter's room when Brad was sleeping. And then in later years, we kept in touch by phone. We both had our own lives and our own kids. Later on, I would go to the island with some of my siblings, and we never missed Gala Day. And again, I have several of them here with me again today. Patty and I again kept in touch by phone as our lives went on. Oh, I actually got Patty to set up an email account because I wanted to keep in touch with her that way. So that was a joke. All she ended up doing was sending jokes back and forth with my husband. Never sent me an email. When Brad's cancer came back, I called Patty often and I tried to support them both the best I could, but with 3 children at home, it was often just through phone calls. I met up with her once again at Brad's funeral, of course. Brad's passing was a very bad blow for Patty. Patty had a rough life, as most of you know, but she always came out smiling until her recent hospitalization with a lung illness. It upset her and I both so much, as I'm sure it did other friends here. She was so brave during her weeks in the hospital. I called her every other day to try and cheer her up and help her hold her spirits up. But sadly, her lung issue was found to be cancer. Patty fought even harder then because she wanted to get back home to the island. That was her last wish. Other than we were supposed to go on a trip. We didn't get to do that. Anyway, she really fought hard to get back, but she lost that battle. I want to take this time now to thank Jennifer Scottwood, Rosemary Sullivan, and Darylyn Steele for helping Patty in so many ways that I couldn't. Jennifer, I know, was a constant visitor at the hospital. Well, Patty, with your pretty smile and your funny laugh, you'll be sadly missed by all your island friends.
Ken DeHaas here, 7 Channel. I want to say thanks for all the free freezies after the baseball games. I never forgot you for that. Thank you.
Every single gala day that I can remember, I would stop and sit and chat with Patty. She was truly a wonderful person with a great laugh, and her eyes always sparkled. We'll miss her.
I have lots of memories of Patty, specifically when she used to live across the street from me, when she had Brad as a small child. And just Brad was always out on the street playing with Lindsay and Jamie on their skateboards, and Patty was always making sure everybody was taken care of, like everybody's talking about. But the other thing I was thinking about was that the coffee cart that people keep talking about, she actually had a great name for it. Nobody mentioned that. She called it the Paddy Wagon. And she was there before the first boat every morning so people could have muffins and coffee, grab them and get on that boat. And that was great. Yeah. That's my story about Patty. Oh, also, she had the same birthday as my brother Michael, my stepmother Maxine, and eventually 2 other younger Islanders' kids who were also born on March the 11th. So I felt a connection just through birthdays because, that's what you do in a community. Those are my stories.
Patty was a great person. She was an independent person, and her laugh was infectious with everybody.
Patty's son and her went over to Patty's store to buy some cigarettes when they were, teenagers. And there was a note from my sister Maxine Wilson saying they have permission to buy some cigarettes. And of course Patty, knowing Island kids, said, I'll just call your mom and Jack. And she called Maxine, and Maxine said, absolutely not. The 2 of them ran out. That's my story from, I grew up with Patty and we had some great times together. But I just remembered too that she had the coffee cart at the boat in the mornings for us to all have our coffee and our pastries before we went off to the city. So yes, she was a great friend, and I will really miss her.
Hi, there you are.
There I am, with my water. Wendy Saunders, me, Merrick.
Tell us something about Patty that you remember.
I used to babysit Patty, and I would love to babysit Patty because she had a record that I would come and listen to. The Platters, I'd play it over and over and over again. Many years ago. That was my introduction to, I guess, Motown, which I've always enjoyed, Motown music.
Yeah, Patty used to babysit me too, actually, but it was usually a party babysitting thing because my parents would go out and play bridge over at, I just moved together here. They'd be playing bridge at 15 Channel, and my cousin John would come over, and it was Party City, and Patty and Rick and Jeff Lyne, right?
Oh, right.
No, Jeff Morrison.
Oh, Jeffrey Morrison.
Was it Jeff Morrison?
Oh, right.
Yeah, Jeffy Morrison and Darylyn and Brad and the whole gang would come over, and even Janice Stein, and Nada Stein would come over, dancing and partying well, my mom and dad didn't know what was going on really there. John was babysitting us, that's all we needed to know. And we had a lot of fun though, and Patty was always there dancing like a maniac and listening to music. And I was supposed to be asleep, of course, but I wasn't. I was spying on them on the stairs and actually quite often dancing with them.
Very
lots
good.
of fun.
Hi, Sherry Saunders. I grew up on the island, and something I know about Patty was going to her place as a bootlegger and buying cigarettes, and it was great actually when she started selling wine, which was nice.
Yeah.
So, cheers to Patty.
Yeah, thanks Patty for providing such a great service to the Islanders here.
So Patty had her store. She had it for a few years on the island where you could get the basics. And I remember she was making nothing. Like she wouldn't even mark the items up very much. And I remember saying to her, Patty, she'd charge more, I mean, she'd go and load all the stuff from the city, and you should be charging more. And she was like, no, it's okay. Because she liked to help people. That's just the way she was. She was an amazing mother, as we all know. She was a nurturer, but she also just had that sort of motherly thing, You always felt that warmth from her when, whenever you were with her. So, anybody else?
Best butter tart ever.
The best butter tarts in the entire food world. Christine.
Anyway, I just want to talk about Patty's cookies for a minute. Because, as Brett said, she sold the basics, and so I used to go over for cookies. It was better than baking a whole pan or 2 pans of them, just to buy one at a time. And she was a good cook, and I went for several years and tried all her different recipes. Very good. And but what was really, really nice was socializing with her. Like when you went there, you had a legitimate excuse to knock on somebody's door during her hours, her business hours, and then we'd have a little chat and socialize. And we shared a love of music, and I was thinking about Rick Scottwood and his music collection, and how we both shared a love of that kind of old music, as Rick did as well. And
I think I played the drum and she played the triangle. And of course, we live right across the park, so like Sandy was just saying, it was always really nice just to go over and just hang out with Patty and talk about the weather and just yeah, it was just Patty, everybody knows what it was like to go there. She was the nicest person ever, and she provided a valuable service, especially when you ran out of beer on the just like she didn't sell beer. She stopped selling beer eventually, but yeah, at that point, smokes, whatever. It was très convenient. Yeah, no, Patty was Patty. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. She just was a lovely person, and I know we'll all miss her a lot. And I've known her a long, long time.
And baseball.
Oh, baseball.
Yeah, 1974 and 1975. And she was a good ball player. And she always bought good beer.
I was in her. She was in my wedding party.
Was she really?
Yep.
Aw, that's a nice memory. Yeah. Was she your bridesmaid?
Yeah. I was a bride. It was so nice to see her.
Yeah, I miss her. Thanks, Betsy.
Hey, here's my sister again because she forgot to say something before. Dementia creeping.
Dementia, yeah. Well, when Doug came up, it made me think of this. I've mentioned it before on gala weekends, but there are a lot of us here today who, as young kids, 10, 11, 12 years old, were in what was called a glee club on the island, and we performed. Mrs. Jackson played piano, and her daughter was also involved. And she came up to us, Mrs. Jackson, as we were all hanging around the tree out here, and said, would anybody be interested in being in a singing group? And we said, yep. So we auditioned, and honestly, everybody that was in it, Leeches were in it, Doug was in it, who else is here that was in it? Warren, Kim Scott Wood, David Smith, Jackie Merrick, Jimmy Sockett, Roy Coleman, Ross Horn. He was a beautiful doll. He dressed up as a woman. Myself. Who else did I miss? Because there are a lot of us. Nancy and Carol Hadrow. I did say Ross. Bruce Tuck, Susie Tolley. The only person who wasn't, because he was too young, was my brother Brett. And he was sick to death about that. Oh, and Patty. I'm sorry, Patty. That's why I got up to say. Patty was part of the group. And you know what? Every one of us could keep a tune. There was nobody in the group that couldn't sing. Not the best, but we could all sing. And I guess we auditioned, but I don't remember doing that. And we dressed up, and it was pretty memorable. Brett would stand out sometimes and do, you know, wish he was there, and he'd dance in the background, but there was an age, I think 10, and he was 7, so he never got to do it. But he makes up for it now in his bands. That's what I was thinking. And the other thing about Patty that was mentioned, her store was mentioned, and I forgot to say, you know that she never served, well, probably, to people she didn't know. And when people came to the door and said, Kim Scott would send me over, or somebody on the island said, she'd say, I'm really sorry, but I can't serve you. And it was always at risk. Wasn't supposed to be doing that business, so you never knew. And the underage thing, she was always very careful to not. And she knew their ages, so I love that story Linda told about the cigarettes. But thank you. And
this isn't my story, it's Manuel's story. He sent me a text earlier because I asked if he had any stories about Patty. And he said that there was one time where he and Patty were tasked to do a report on Bolivia. And I was thinking, this is very odd. I have no idea why Patty and Manuel would be doing a report on Bolivia. But I then realized that this was in grade 3. Because they met actually in grade 1. Not kindergarten, but grade 1, I believe, anyway. So this is to try and reinstate that Patty wasn't the worst student, because she did a little essay on Bolivia, and Manuel had to do the poster, and he did a map or something like that. And she was praised by the teacher. So in spite of that grade 5 teacher saying that it was an uphill battle all the way, she actually didn't do too badly when it came to Bolivia. And the second small thing is that Manuel he always does bartering with various things, and he one time helped her with a heating problem that she had. It was an ongoing one. And she paid him with the best rum cake that I have ever tasted. And he even got the recipe, although he's not sure where it is, but it was
You gotta find it! We need that recipe.
Oh, I'll see if I...
It's gone missing, we need it.
Oh, really? Well, he said that he did have it. Don't know when. Anyway,
we'll miss her very much, and I'm glad so many people showed up and said such great things about her, and she deserves to be loved forever.
Patty's cousin. We're just over here for a memorial on the island, and it's been an awesome day.
Yeah. So I can't believe you guys used to live on 6th Street, right?
Yes, 6th Street.
Yeah, and your mom and dad was Betty. What was your dad's name?
Cliff, but I think they called him Bus.
Oh yeah, Bus.
He used to make the ice rink out front of our house every winter.
For the skating.
For the skating.
Great.
And your Uncle Hank still lives here,
Yeah,
Hank Hanger.
Hank Hanger still lives here, yeah.
Yeah, your uncle.
Yeah.
Awesome, yeah. He's not related.
Yes,
No,
he
yeah.
Trying to whisper. Chat.
Here, say hello.
Hello.
Say your name.
Hello, Gail Leach.
Jackie Leach.
Okay.
Dale Leach.
I'll just say something quick that every time my brother comes over here, he saw Patty, Wendell would say, Warren, there's your old girlfriend. We were about 12 years old. Of course, there was Lorraine, there was Julie Files, there was a whole bunch of them back then. Never Darylyn, because she went out with the older guys. She's my age. But the one thing about Patty later on in life, that she was independent completely. I mean, I go to the boat, Patty's there with her shopping cart, off the Loblaws, come back with all their stuff. I'd say, let me give you a hand. No, I'm just taking my time walking home. But she did it all by herself all the time, and she was absolutely a wonderful person, a very independent, strong person for her son, for everyone.
Now Patty's she's resting in peace with Brad, Johnny Steele, Ricky Scottwood, and they're up there, they're playing records, and Brad's saying, turn it down! Are you ready, Jimmy?
Hold on, I have one more.
No? Okay, who else is?
I have an add-on. This is for the young people that I don't see here, but whenever we had T-ball or anything in the park, Patty gave them free popsicles, free freezies after every game. And so I'm speaking for all of them. Thank you very much, Patty.
House on the island from Patty, and it was an experience that is hard to really replicate because this was in the days when the dreaded Metro, tried to rip everything down, and I was coming from Montreal, and I was looking for a house, and I couldn't afford Toronto prices, and I came over and sat in the cafe, and there, just as life happened, there was a woman by the name of, I think, Mary Wadsworth, that some of you probably will remember, and she said, "What are you doing here?" Well, so I had to tell my story, and I said, "I'm looking for a house." And when, she said, "Well, just this morning, my neighbor, Patty Bradley, said she needed to sell her house. Patty had got her father's house, and she was going to sell her old house." And literally, we walked over, and she introduced me to Patty, and for 5 minutes we talked, and I knew I wanted to buy this house. Now, this was one of the old Simpsons houses. It was not in tremendous shape, I have to tell you. The pipes froze in the middle of winter. But I bought that house, and that house changed my life in a very fundamental way. But I intended really to tell one little story about this, and that was I went back to Montreal and put all my living goods in a U-Haul truck, and we drove down with my son Eric, who many of you know. Went down the 401, and I got here, and I went down to get a permit to bring my truck over, and I couldn't get a permit. We're not allowing anything then. And so, I was a little frantic. I went around and I talked to Peter Freeman, who's a relative, and Peter said, "Oh, you can put it on a barge and put your stuff on a barge." And I thought, "Oh, God, no." And I went over to Patty's and I said, "Geez, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do." And Patty said, "No problem, no problem. We'll tell them we're living together." Literally. And that's how it's known. I said, "Well, I'm the truck driver," but that's how I got to Toronto Island. Thank you, Patty Bradley.
Don't need to say, I'm Sheila.
Hi, Jamie Saunders, and we're going to
miss you.
Patty.
But you know what I remember about Patty? I used to babysit Brad, and Patty used to be the best. She'd always leave the pop and chips out for us, and she'd pay the best, and she'd always come home the latest at the island dances. We love you.
Brad, we're real friends, and I thought he was the most wonderful man, little guy, when he was small. You were a terrific mother, so thanks for making such a great son. He was Carl's comfort.
Oh, that's sweet.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Most people know me, I'm a suck, and I'll start crying, so the glasses are useless. The last few months were really hard to be with Patty. She was, it was just so sad to see how she was fading away. But we talked about old times, and I said, "Do you remember when I moved to the island?" And she goes, "I remember the day you showed up." And she goes, "Rick dropped you on me." I said, "Well, yeah, that was kind of it. Rick took me around the corner from Lakeshore. First he brings me to a house I never knew he had. Except for going to my house. What the hell are you talking about? You live with your father and our friends, you know?" He says, "No, I got a house." Sure, okay. It was a shack. It was not a house. Then he introduces me first to people, Wendell Webster and his brother Wesley, who I went to high school with. And as soon as I said, "What was his name?" And she goes, "Webster?" And I go, "Wesley Webster." Oh, frickin' little prick. He was a shit disturber in school all the time. And he was in love with my parents. My parents had very close friends, and I grew up with their children. And he was in love with their daughter and her girlfriend. So he would try to sneak into the girls' change room because we had swim practice. So he would walk around the island and say, hey, Rick, you know, I saw her in the change room, you know. Shut up, you know, I don't want to know you. So he'd come around the corner and there goes, oh good, there's Patty. And there's Robin and Chris. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to them. Chris is Warren's wife. And I go, who's Warren? My cousin. Okay, all right, another W, okay. And Chris and Robin, and he introduces us, and then he goes, and there's Patty. Patty I've known since I was a little kid. We love music. All we do is love to listen to music. Well, I know there's a difference between love and obsession. Those two were obsessed with olden goldies, and it is most wonderful to sit with them. They listen to the music, they know the artist, the year, the label, all of that stuff. And it was fun to sit with them. Patty at that time was on the WA committee, and she walked me over here. It was Gala Day. Don't ever bring someone to Gala Day for their first time here. Not a good thing. You get sucked into everything. So Patty brings me over and she goes, let's see, watch. This is the bingo comes up. Yeah, well, bingo, yeah, okay. And she goes, we buy the prizes. There's great prizes, all kinds of prizes. I'm gonna buy the prizes next year. You're gonna help me, right? Her fault, I'm still doing it. She dragged me everywhere, but I learned. And then I dragged Robin into it, and then Robin left me, and then I was stuck. I'm doing it myself, it's okay. But Patty was special. When Kim came along, Brad became his guiding light. And Patty would look out for the two of them all the time, and she was just like another mother to him. She took such care of him if he walked over. If she saw him out in the park by himself, she made sure he got home right away. And she was just so kind to him. Mind you, she had to do that with Rick too. If I go in Patty's house, when I would go in Patty's house, all I would do is go in her kitchen, and she has a cabinet there with glass doors, and I would just open it, and I would just pull all my coffee cups, beer mugs, everything, and take them back home, because they would just come right back to her house.
But Jennifer, with Rick, didn't you put a different address in his clothes?
I tried, it didn't work. He was just, he would fall asleep at her place, and I knew I didn't have to worry about anything because she would be taking care of him. He'd probably have one or two beers too many after work, and they'd be on the music, right? But she looked after him. And to see her in her later years now in the last year, seeing her just sort of dwindle. She was eating good, she was trying to lose weight, trying to keep her blood sugars down. It was hard. She had a tough time. Funniest part was as she was losing weight, she'd go to me, oh, Jen, I don't know what to do. I tried everything. How do you get rid of this flappy skin? And she'd be flapping it around. Going, Patty, you're 70. It's not going anywhere. It's going south. That's it, And she goes, well, I bought this cream. I go, Patty, you bought every cream for wrinkles, for I don't know what. She bought everything, and it's still all there, unopened, free to a good home, But she was just so sweet. She goes like, I just want to get better. I want to do this. I want to go to Grenada. And I said, Patty, you've been saying that for over 10 years. You should have gone. I know you couldn't go after Brad died, but later on, a few years later, you should have gone. He would have wanted you to go. Well, I found the list of the places she wanted to go to, and I thought, if I ever make it there, I'm going to all those places she wanted to go to. When she was in the hospital, we talked about it. And she goes, I want to get better, because I want to go to Grenada still. When I get better, I'm getting out of here and I'm getting on a plane. If they can't go with an oxygen tank, then I don't care. I'll take a train and swim. I don't care. I don't know. But she was right to the very end. She was herself. When I called the ambulance one day, I called the fire hall. This was when she went in the hospital in December. I called the fire hall and I said, I just want to ask questions about odd behavior, kind of. And they said, oh no, call 911. And I said, well, I don't want to call 911. I want to ask a question. I don't want a 911 call. So fireman hung up on me. And then 5 minutes later, another fireman called. And he said, I heard the conversation. And I said, well, I don't know what to do. She's lying in bed. She's not really totally coherent, but she won't let me call the fire department. So he said, well, if a fire truck happens to come by in the next 5 minutes, just wave us down. So they did show up, and I said, she's in the bed, she's on her bed. And so he talks to her, do you know who you are? Yes, and she says her name. Do you know when you were born? 71. I go, no, you weren't born 71. He goes, I don't think so. When were you born? Oh, 51. I'm 71. Okay, all right, we got that. And I go, Patty, the fireman's going to try to figure out why you've been laying in bed for 2 days. And she just looks at me, and he goes, she mumbled something. Oh, do you know where you live? And she mumbled. And he said, is this how she always is? And I said, no, she's not grumpy like this. She doesn't have that tone. She's always got a happy, cheerful tone. So he asked her something, and she just turns her, looks up, and she goes, looks at me, she goes, I'm going to kill you. I said, go ahead, but call that fireman back, okay? No, we like him. So she did go to the hospital next day, and we chatted. She was sort of in and out of it a bit. They had her on drugs, but when she was coherent, she would talk about old stories, and some of them were just terrific. Things I mean, some of the people I didn't know who they were, but I let her talk because it made her feel better, and I wanted to hear the stories. The second bout, when she came home, she was home for a month. We went to the hospital, and she was at a doctor's appointment to start going on chemo. And they took her blood pressure, and they said she's not leaving here. And then we ended up in ICU. That's when Darylyn came down then to help me and keep Patty going. And when Patty got she had been intubated, and when that came out, took a little while, but a day, and then she could rasp a little bit of words. Darylyn puts on the 50s on her phone, and the two of them start singing in ICU. And the staff that was there, they were all young, but they loved it. They really loved it, and you could see there was the old Patty, and sadly that was the last time I saw the real Patty. And then a few days later, she went into palliative care, and sadly then, with her last words, she said, I still want to go to Grenada. But it's time to go, and you take care of Darylyn. And it was like, I'll take care of everybody, and I just wanted to do things that she wanted. She wanted things that people could use to go back. Anything she had that somebody could need or use, she wanted them to have it. She said, don't sell anything, just give things away that are good. So I'm taking care of that for her so that everything gets used in Patty fashion, recycle. We're gonna miss her. She was a great friend to everyone in my family and to many of you people too, Islanders, old Islanders, new Islanders, kids that have grown up. One day, Kim, you'll get a present from her for Sadie because she forgot, or Charlie, she forgot. I don't go to the city much, that's all. Her life was to Loblaws and back. But we're all gonna remember her, and hopefully this year we will have another baseball tournament of Henderson versus Scotwood maybe, like we did 10 years ago for Brad. I hope everybody everybody will be there. Thought of something somebody said, and now I forgot what it was.
Well, you can get back up.
Yeah, I'll forget
Think
back
of
up. I'll forget to get back up.
Well, no, I'll say, have you remembered it? Get back up.
I'll try. Somebody
Okay.
said something. Thanks, everyone. Oh, I know what it was. Never mind. It was when you mentioned the rum cake. In November, Patty made 15 rum cakes to make sure everybody that she usually gave them to got one for Christmas. I tried to deliver them, couldn't get everybody, so they were in her freezer. So we decided that those rum cakes would be for everybody, and that is what you're having. There is Patty's, one of a time, once a year, rum cake, possibly the last time ever. So enjoy it, please. She would want everyone to enjoy it.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jody, you would have come up to me and say you didn't read mine, but I just remembered. First of all, this woman's name is Joanne Hanger. The Hanger family and the Bradley family are connected. Some don't know that. Jack Bradley's sister Betty married Bus Hanger, and they had 4 children. Donnie, Joanne, Barbara, Bobby, and Donnie. And I got the order wrong. Donnie's the oldest. And today, part of that, someone from that family who's here is Joanne. And this is what Joanne has written. Good afternoon. My name is Joanne McCarthy, formerly Jody Hanger. When I too was an Islander many years ago, my friends called me Jody back then. Patty always cut to the chase. She lovingly and with a wry smile often called me Joe. As you can see here today, so many people have gathered to celebrate Patty's life and to let others know that they appreciated her friendship, her generosity, and her willingness to lend a hand. So whether you were Patty's friend, an acquaintance of hers, or someone who never had the pleasure of meeting her, you are welcome here. That's the way Patty would have wanted it. I am Patty's cousin, closest relative, and I was her neighbor too. In fact, we both grew up together on Wards Island. Patty and her family lived on 5th Street, and my family lived on 6th Street. Christmas dinners, birthdays, barbecues, and impromptu family gatherings were part of our lives on the island, a part that Patty loved. My mother, Betty Hanger, and Patty's dad, Jack, were siblings, and Patty and I went to school together at the Island Public School. It was a wonderful way to experience childhood, and Patty always made experiences special. Even back then, she was a bit on the wild side. As many of you may know, she had a mischievous twinkle in her eye. That's so true. Most of the time, and some of you may recall Patty really loved to party. I think one of her famous Christmas rum cakes will be remembered by anyone fortunate enough to eat one. As I recall, and true to her style, it seemed to have far more rum in it than most cakes. She loved it that way. I now guard her recipe, Jody. Great. We looked everywhere. But more importantly, she always put the needs of others ahead of her own. Patty was known to always meet and greet people with a smile and an unspoken expression that said, "How can I help?" She had the proverbial open door policy, and she took it to extremes. Her door was literally always open and unlocked. Friends, relatives, or anyone who appeared at her doorstep were always welcome. She trusted others and was most trustworthy herself. She used to run a not-so-secret Wards Island store that offered food, beverages, and other needed items. Typical of Patty's character, she operated it on an honor system. Pay if you can, if not, maybe later. Patty, like most of us, also experienced sadness from time to time, but it never diminished her positive outlook. In spite of setbacks in her life, she remained a strong person and kept an unwavering positive attitude that was both rare and memorable. Through the tears, and unbearable grief, she still had the courage to smile and greet people in her typical upbeat way. She understood and accepted that we may all experience sadness or disappointment in our life, but happiness will eventually be part of our future. That was Patty's viewpoint, her enviable approach to life. Patty was a person of integrity too. She always tried to do the right thing, even when no one was looking. That was important to her, and she believed that way of living was important for everyone. She also saw the goodness in people, not their shortcomings, and she viewed a happy outlook as a choice, an option. She always made her choice. There are few people that I have met in my life that are truly selfless, non-materialistic, and care about others more than themselves. Patty was one such person. She made a clear difference in the lives of others, and by doing so, enriched her own life. Maybe that's one of the reasons she always smiled. I'm grateful that I was her cousin and experienced her love of life. She shared with me her belief that it's important to do your very best, truly care about others, and always keep smiling. Thanks, Patty, for the fabulous memories, for the laughter, and for the love, and may God bless you. Now, that is the end, and I wonder where Jody is. Where are you, Jody? Jody, stand up so everybody can see you and say hello to you. And the funny end to that story is I've come to know Joanne through emails and whatnot in the last little bit, especially since Patty was unwell. And I knew she was Joanne Hanger, but I didn't know who she was. And it wasn't until today when we finally met in person, and she said, well, I went by Jody. What the hell? I said, why didn't you? I know you. I do know you. It's been about 65 years. Thank you, Jody. The other thing that I would like to mention, and hopefully this is the end of us, I did mention Rosemary Sullivan, and Jennifer has been unbelievably helpful in everything that she's done with this. Rosemary too. Really, Jennifer and I stepped in to help out. Rosemary wasn't able to get to the hospital, so we made the changes so that we could be the ones to go. Rosemary, of course, would have been there had she been able to. Rosemary took care of all the funeral arrangements. She also is the one who has put all of this together today. All the food is all Rosemary. All the booze is her doing. Thank you, Rosemary. And thanks to the girls and all the family for helping Rosemary. I think that's it. Nobody else?
Somebody give her the hook.
That's it.
So, well, me, Sullivan. And my biggest memory of Patty is her laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It was just such an infectious laugh. She was always happy. Always. Yeah.
Yeah, she had a great laugh.
Yeah, she did.
It's infectious, I know. And I remember as kids, like, she was just always at every function, laughing, fun, friendly, participating.
We actually looked for her here because it didn't seem right that she wasn't here. But she was here in everybody's stories. It brought her back. Really nice.
Sheila talked about the freezies, right? Like the kids all getting freezies after games. And somebody mentioned it,
Yeah, growing up beside the park, too.
Yeah. Okay, this is really good. I want this recipe.
What is that? Is that the rum
That's
cake?
a rum cake. It's here.
Is that what that is?
But you know what? It's a hint of rum. It's sugary. I have not a sweet tooth. I have sweet teeth. So this is great. This should be shared.
God, what do I say? I'm trying to think of something like clever, but I got nothing. Anyway,
say what your heart says.
Yeah, I've got many fond memories of Patty. From watching the World Series baseball in 92, 93 with Seisha, who we called Seesaw and he hated it, to just, being, part of that family and them being part of ours. And she'll sadly be missed as well, along with Brad. And I know that they're all together as far as Brad and Rick and my dad, that is, and Brad go. So, yeah. Love all of them, and we'll miss them.
Thanksgiving.
You are going to be remembered forever by all of us, the kids especially. They loved the Freezies. Thank you, girl.
This is Jim
Enjoy.
Steele here, son of John Steele, brother of Jim Steele. Just making a little message to commemorate Patty on her day of celebration here. I miss her obviously lots, and I don't know, I guess one of the main things I'm gonna really miss of her is when you get a couple too many beers into her, and you know, you either walk, skip, drag her, carry her all the way back home so she can you know, drink off or sleep off the excess booze. But anyways, that's it for me.
Talking about how sweet she was. What was it you said about her that you were just saying? Oh, you already said it on there. Yeah, and then I got a picture of me and Bonnie Handy and Patty sunbathing in front of her house, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I remember those days. That was so much fun. Yeah, so love you, Patty. We'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Just say hi.
Hi. This has been a wonderful day. I'm Darylyn Steele, and this was a beautiful day to celebrate Patty Ruth Bradley's life. Have a great day. Oh,
Thanks so much, Darylyn. Did an amazing job being the hostess.
Whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry.